Today on the Hawk Zone Rundown, we have longtime Seattle journalist Cluff returning on the show. Chris has been on the show a few times, so we're excited to have him back to talk. We're just in the middle of finishing up mini camp, and so we're gonna get Chris's thoughts on how he thinks this roster now looks since the draft and free agency, and just what he's seeing right now, kind of leading into camp later on in the summer. And we're going to get his thoughts on, some press conferences today, just guys feelings on, how Mike MacDonald and the culture and, guys like DK Metcalf talking today about, the offense and how he sees it and how excited he is. And then just get Chris's thoughts on some of the guys that we've talked about that, potentially could have been cut. And now that are gone, how does he really like the make of this team? So Bryce, what's happening, man?
Not a lot, man. Just, getting through this small period here. I know that Mike MacDonald said that minicamp's over as of today. So we're going to hit that 6-week stretch now where there's not a lot to talk about Seahawk-wise, but we're going to definitely bring some cool topics to everybody and have some cool guests on in that to fill that Seahawk gap for you guys. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely we talked about a slow time of the year, but like you just mentioned, some great guests coming on. Stuff that obviously we had our intriguing. We started off our intriguing Seahawks 25, and we're going to continue that as leading up to camp here to just bring you guys some content. And then, guys, we appreciate all the support that's been happening on the show. And when we're gaining subscribers, and it's thanks to you guys. And for anybody that's new and listening and you like what you're hearing, go down and hit the subscribe button and notification button and like button, all that stuff. And it really helps out the channel. And when we're getting close to that 500 mark too, and we're talking about when we hit that 500, we're gonna have a live Q&A, and just everybody that's been supporting the channel and just keeping up with all the episodes, giving you guys an opportunity to come on and just fire out the questions and kind of a little have fun with that, a little back and forth, and just a great time to do it, leading up to hopefully just for camp here. So other than that, guys, on the other side of the break, Cluff.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game.
This run. Get off me.
DK.
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks.
And Washington's got a lead. Leon Washington. We're going to host the NFC Championship.
Guys, welcome back to the show. Back with us, returning guest Cluff, longtime Seattle journalist and former Seattle Times writer, also author of a couple of Seahawks books. Chris, we appreciate you coming back on the show and chopping up Seahawks with us again.
Yeah, it's always great to be with you guys. It's always good to talk to Hawks.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it. So mini camps officially come to an end, and obviously a different culture, hasn't been like this for about a decade and a half. You got Mike MacDonald, everybody knows, a brand new coaching staff, and you had OTAs, but now you had mini camp and guys really kind of coming in, and we're getting close to camp. We're still 6 weeks out kind of thing, but you look at this and you kind of get excited, right? Because there's guys that were on this roster, a lot of returning guys, on both sides of the ball, especially the offense, right? Almost everybody, exception with the some moving parts on that offensive line, and we'll jump into the offense. But what do you expect? Guys that might benefit, the most, that maybe underachieved or just maybe were put in the wrong spots last season or the previous season, that might be different with Mike, that they can, that you think, okay, these guys can really benefit from Mike and just these new coaches in general.
I would say let's start with the front seven on defense, because that group has been super confused, or at least we've been confused by what they're doing over the last 2-3 years. And I really think that Mike MacDonald is going to steady it out. He clearly has a plan of multiplicity and diversity and moving guys around the defense. Dre Jones is a guy they talk about. They want to move around and get more out of. That's just to list the first guy that you probably want to see more out of because they gave him such a big contract last year, and he didn't really do much of anything in that defense. But in this defense, expecting a lot more, maybe playing him at some linebacker, it looks like, moving him around a bunch. Leonard Williams has been playing like 6 different positions, it sounds like, and he's going to be moving around as well. Witherspoon in the back end, already stepping forward as the leader of this defense. I mean, already it's in his second year, and he's going to be used in all these diverse ways as well. So I think you're going to just see the most talented guys being used to their absolute maximum ability by Mike MacDonald on that side of the ball. So that's where I would start.
Yeah, so speaking of like that front seven there, Chris, and like, you've listened to Mike and Leonard Williams talk, and even Boy Mafe about how detail-oriented Mike MacDonald is with their blitz packages, how they're building this defense from, the ground up essentially in this mini camp period. Do you think a guy like, say, Darrell Taylor, who had a good second season in Seattle, last year was basically non-existent, is he a guy that could eventually benefit from Mike MacDonald changing this front up in the way that they do things, or is potentially Darrell Taylor just one of those guys that could eventually be a cut at the end of the training camp just because he may not fit properly?
I was really curious to see what Mike MacDonald thought of Darrell Taylor and whether they would actually bring him back. And if you noticed, they didn't actually tender him as a restricted free agent. They signed him to a very similar deal for money-wise, it's around $3 million. But that kind of spoke to, hey, we don't really care about tendering you, but we do want you here, but we're only going to guarantee X amount of it. So they're basically guaranteeing less of that money off the bat. And now, granted, you can always move things around. You can always pay him less if you want. You can do things like that. They did that with a couple of their tenders already. So there's always all those things that they can do. But it was really curious to me what they were going to do with Darrell Taylor, and it sounds like they want to give him a shot. Mike MacDonald does want to see what he can do in this defense. And we all know that his big failure has been against the run. He just cannot – he doesn't understand the run fits. And maybe that was just Pete Carroll's confused defense, part of that whole confusion of they didn't know what they were doing on that side of the ball. And maybe Darrell Taylor just fell into that trap, unfortunately. And maybe Mike MacDonald is going to fix him, and we'll get the absolute best out of him. Kind of what we saw – when he had 8 or 9 sacks, 2 years ago. So it's possible that they get something out of him. I think that they're hopeful of that. Otherwise, they wouldn't have brought him back. So we'll see. I mean, but I think we know that Nwosu and Mafe are going to be the lead guys out there, and Dre Jones, who, as we just talked about, also going to be playing some of that. So maybe Darrell Taylor's toward the back end of that rotation and not even somebody they're super counting on anyway, because they do know what his deficiencies are. So training camp will show a lot, and preseason will show a lot about what you're talking about there, Bryce, with Darrell.
Yeah, Chris, you mentioned the front seven, and obviously, that's going to be something to keep your eye on. Obviously, we've drafted Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, his first camp as well. People forget he came through, halfway through the year. So you have Leonard's first camp, Byron's coming in, Nwasu's healthy. So you're sort of building the confidence a little bit on that D line, and the corner room looks good. Are you concerned about the linebackers, what we have right now, and obviously a couple of guys that are still hurt in Baker and Dodson? Does that concern you at all? And then the safeties, obviously Julian Love, had a great second half, and feels like that's a cemented spot. But are there concerns there for you? The front seven, obviously, if it works out, I mean, obviously, in the corners, I mean, you're set. You feel like you're good. But is there concern there at those other positions?
Linebacker is definitely just kind of play it by year kind of position this year. Let's just see how these guys turn out, because they're pretty much everybody's signed to 1 year deals. So it's just kind of like who's gonna fit long term here. So they're kind of figuring that out. It's kind of similar with the safeties, because their safeties, I think what they have, Jenkins is signed for 2 years, but the other guys are 1 year deals. So you're looking at trying to figure out kind of who fits in those spots, linebackers and safeties. And you don't want to, it's clear they didn't want to get into a position where they're overpaying guys again at those spots, which they have been doing a lot recently. And so I think they just want to see, this whole year is a tryout year for everybody, because it's Mike MacDonald's first year, and he wants to see who's going to fit in with his culture, his scheme, the way they're going to do things, who actually is going to pick it up and be able to play fast in his defense, who's going to fit into Ryan Grubb's offense. So they're really, everybody's trying out, everybody. So I think the linebacker situation, I'm not concerned about it. They'll bring those guys. Those guys will be ready when they need to be. You just have to have fingers crossed that they will. There's a reason they got him on the cheap, like these guys. So you got to remember that. There's a reason they didn't have to pay a whole lot of money to these guys. Baker was hurt in Miami, and then Dodson came on, but he's never been a full-time starter. So that's the other thing, like not totally proven. So you have either an injury issue or not a totally proven guy. So you got to kind of keep in mind like where these guys are coming from and why they got him at the amounts they got him for, and then just see how it turns out for this year, because it totally could work out that they re-sign one or two of the guys and they become 2 or 3 year players here, under extensions or something. So yeah, I think that's all to be determined, right, Ryan? All to be determined.
Right.
When I look at that linebacking core there, Chris, and it does give me some concern that, yes, these guys are in the building, but they're not taking reps on the field. Like I think Dodson took a few reps in OTA before he ran into having some sort of injury. Baker hasn't been on the field really at all. The one thing I look at, they obviously drafted Tyrese Knight, who I think they're hoping Mike MacDonald can turn into a very, very good starting linebacker, which he has the potential to do. I know a lot of people shunned on the pick because he's undersized, and all these different scouts analysis guys are had him late 7th round in some respects. But the one thing that I look at is, we do have Patrick O'Connell coming back. John Radigan's there, who they did tender, like you mentioned earlier, and they've been getting a lot of the first team reps and impressing. But the other guy that I'm kind of interested in, it'll be a training camp battle to see, is Gibbs out of Wyoming. When I watch him play, I see a lot of Logan Wilson from the Cincinnati Bengals in his game, very similar stylistically as a linebacker. And so I wonder if part of Seattle's thought process there was, hey, we've got, like when we had Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll was the DB whisperer. Like he turned a 5th round pick of Richard Sherman into a all-pro corner. Yes, part of that was Richard, but part of that was Pete's coaching, and he did it throughout his career. Byron Maxwell, Brandon Browner, and all these different corners came in, and Pete was able to turn them into starting caliber players. I wonder if that's kind of the same approach they're taking at linebacker is, hey, you know what? We don't necessarily have to go get the top of the line guys. We can get in guys, bring them in, and let Mike develop them, and then end up getting our starters. So that's definitely one approach I think they may take with the linebacking core this year. The other thing with safeties, as you mentioned, because like Jenkins is essentially on a 1 year deal with his, I think Kobe Bryant has a real shot to start opposite Julian Love if he can pick up this defense and go. After they moved him to safety last year, and it seems like he's basically playing either safety or nickel this year from what I've read and seen from the reporters at OTAs, but apparently he's quite a likable player for Mike MacDonald. He seems to quite have a fondness for Kobe Bryant just from what I've been reading. So I wonder if that makes, potentially Jenkins a cut at training camp, because his deal isn't anything really special and guaranteed money, I don't believe.
Yeah, I think Kobe Bryant is a really interesting case because he has shown promise. What he had 4 forced fumbles in his first year. He got off to a really hot start. And then some injuries kind of overtook him, and so he's kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit, I think. And so maybe Mike MacDonald brings him back out of that shuffle, like you said. Maybe he becomes a big player at safety. Maybe he's the nickel when Weatherspoon's playing out on the outside. So we'll see. We'll see kind of how that works out. But I feel like he is the guy definitely to keep an eye on, because you want to see where it's kind of like, he's like more of he's like kind of like Darrell Taylor, where he's sort of, but Darrell Taylor's shown a lot of negatives, whereas Kobe Bryant just kind of got lost in the shuffle, I feel. And so I think that Brian is a guy we do want to watch out. Hey, where's he going to end up? How are they going to play him? And does he become kind of a dark horse guy like you were just talking about that's going to step up? So I think there's totally validity to that idea.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, sticking with the DBs, one more question I got. You bring up Witherspoon, you bring up how Mike, wants to just use these guys, kind of a guy like him, he's probably just salivating on just moving him around. And, because he could have a totally different look this year. We drafted 2 corners, that corner room's pretty deep. You still have Trey Brown, Mike Jackson, Tariq. Is there a wide open sort of competition for, the other starting cornerback spot in your opinion, or do you think it's still Reek, and or do you think because of last year Mike's just looking at, it's anybody's spot right now? Like, yeah, Reek's got a ceiling, he's got a ridiculous length and speed, or do you just think it's just open right now for that other spot?
Well, I think that there's two ways I'll answer this question. First, I think that Woolen is the odds-on favorite to start, but I would say based on what he did last year and how he just kind of disappeared, he was allergic to tackling. I know, like he like coming off the injury, he just suddenly just didn't want to get involved. He just not like there'd be a big mad rush of guys to tackle a guy, and he would just stand back and just let his teammates do it. And Mike MacDonald will not stand for that. If that's how he's going to play again this year, he won't be starting. He will definitely be on the bench, if not even gone off the team. But I don't think that's. I think Mike's going to get him going again, because he showed as a rookie that he can do it, and I think Mike MacDonald knows what he can do, and will figure out how to get the most out of him. So I think Woolen will be the favorite to start, and he'll end up starting and play a lot better than he did last year. That's just kind of my initial thought about him.
Yeah, I mean, that's the intriguing thing about Mike, right? I mean, I think if we were sitting around here, with the same, with Pete and the same regime, you might be like, well, what's going to change? Like, he comes off this weird year, he disappears, like you said, allergic to tackling, and you feel like you're just going to run back the same thing. But like you said, he's one of those intriguing guys for me because of, like, the rookie season he had, and just the intangibles he has, right? You still think, he's not even reaching that ceiling close. So you bring in a guy like, Mike, and like you said, a guy like Mike MacDonald, he wouldn't put up with that. You see a game like that, I mean, he would be, on the bench pretty quick. And just saying, a guy like that, okay, what can we get out of this guy? Because there's so many tools here. So that's the, like you said, there's so many unknowns, and, wait and see. Draymond Jones, Reeks, and other guys. So that's a kind of a cool thing about going into this year. Like, so many unknowns, tryout years. It's it is interesting. I want to move over to the offense, and DK, came out and they were asking about, Grubb's offense, and, how is he liking this, and all this kind of stuff. And he goes, of course he thinks it's exciting, it's explosive, get the ball down, push the ball down the field kind of thing. And based on what Grubb style was at Washington. And do you see just a breakout, like, great year for DK, where he just takes it to that next level in this offense? And if he does just have that next step year, how long do you see, two-part question, how long would you see him on this team? Obviously, he will have a contract that is coming up, second go around. Would you see Seattle really open up the pocketbooks just based on how hot that wide receiver market has gotten the last couple of years? Or do, a guy like John thinking, based on past, when they had success in Super Bowls, not really making that, your number one priority where you're paying huge money to a receiver? How do you look at, those two things with DK?
Yeah, these are all great questions about DK. To answer the first part of that, I think Jackson Smith and Jigba's production this year and his stepping up is going to be big for DK. because then he's just going to be more experienced. It sounds like he's already on the same page with Gino. They're really got a lot more synergy going on, and which is natural because it's his second season. And he showed flashes of great stuff last year. It just wasn't used as much early on, and then kind of sort of came on in the second half. And I feel like he's going to be from day one. Everyone expects him to basically take over for Tyler and Tyler Lockett, and Lockett will then kind of become the slot guy, which is fine. I mean, however they work it, they got 3 really good receivers, and I'm glad that Tyler Lockett's back and that he adjusted his contract to make that happen. And I think when we talked last time, I said that I didn't think he was going anywhere, and that they would figure out a way, and that if they did ask him to do someone's contract, he would oblige. So that all turned out the way we thought it was going to. And I feel like those 3 guys together, they're really, I mean, this is the 3rd year now with Gino for DK, so that those guys really should have a nice little, simpatico, going on between them. And then you just add what JSN's going to do on the other side there. And I think that's really going to open things up more for Day. And he should have a good season. I mean, we have to see the offense. And as I said to you guys before, the thing about offensive coordinators is you judge them by not by what their plan is going into a game, but by how they adjust in the game. When their plan falls apart, the defense plays much better, outplays them. And this is a prime example. Mike MacDonald's defense, it destroyed the Seahawks last year. Mike MacDonald's college defense destroyed Ryan Grubb's offense in the national championship game. So you can see where I'm going with this, that Ryan Grubb needs to prove that he can do better than the previous Seahawks regime and do better than his offense did against McDonald's defense, in the national championship game. So there's things that Grubb has to prove to make sure that all the talent is being used properly, because they have plenty of talent. Gino is very sufficient as a quarterback, especially with the skill guys he has all around him. And if their offensive line can get in gear, and I guess we'll talk about that in a minute, but that's a big key, obviously, too. And then now just going ahead to the second part about DK, what's his future? It just comes down to, what does Mike MacDonald, does he fit with what they're doing? Does Mike MacDonald like him? Does he think that he's productive for the offense? And they can fit him. They can fit the salary in. If they need to pay $30 million to him, that's fine. I know Justin Jefferson just signed for $35 a year, and that's top dog right now at that position. So you figure DK is going to be aiming for 30 because he's a 25 now, so he was going to get up at least to 30. So they can do that. They can totally do that, because who else are they paying? Like this is the tryout year, like we talked about, and you have to figure out who are the guys we're going to pay going forward, and everything's pretty wide open from next year on. I mean, they can even keep Gino at quarterback. Everyone says they won't and they can't, but that's not true. They can. So they can do a lot of different things, including paying DK if they want to. So I feel like the future's sort of wide open there. It's very much a tryout time for DK, not by his talent. He's already proven his talent, but whether he fits the team. And Ryan Grubb and Mike MacDonald, and then whether he fits enough that they do want to pay him, that high salary that he's gonna obviously gonna merit. So that's kind of how I see it. Playing it by ear.
Yeah. So speaking of that, Chris, and how you're saying like it's a tryout year for everybody, offense, defense. We got to figure out how this is gonna work. Who do you see like right now on this roster that are blue chip players on offense and defense? They're like, we need to keep these guys in the building going forward to build this new core of Seahawk football kind of around. Who would you say are some of those guys? And how many are there in reality for this team?
That was a great question. Just starting on offense, I personally am a DK fan. I've not been in the trade DK camp ever. And I thought before they signed him to his extension that there was a chance they might trade him. Just because they did that with Frank Clark, so they've done it before. But I wasn't one who said, "Oh, trade him." And sure, he has his things on the field every once in a while where he gets into it and gets penalized for this or that. But he's a great talent, and when you have a great talent like that, and you don't have a lot of other guys that you're having to pay necessarily, then pay your talent. So that's back to your point. Like who are the talented guys? Well, you want Cross at left tackle. He's still got a couple years under his contract left of his rookie deal. He should be, assuming he doesn't all of a sudden come into some injury, scenarios where like last year he missed some time. You want him healthy. You want your left tackle healthy. You don't want to be like Russell Okung, who was like injured like half the time, all the time, and then they didn't resign him. So ideally, Cross continues to improve, and he becomes a franchise left tackle. And then you have DK, you have JSN, you have two good running backs, and then the quarterback, yes, is definitely up in air. We don't know what's going to happen necessarily. Gino's clearly the guy this year, and could be the guy again next year. Could be, and I think that'll be a short term. Fans just have to get used to this. It's okay to go short term sometimes, while you build up the rest of the thing, and then see what happens at quarterback, because you never know what falls in your lap. I mean, who knows? Howell might end up turning into a really good quarterback for the Seahawks. They got him for pretty cheap, the equivalent of like a late 4th round pick. To me, that's a good trade on a guy who has a bunch of starting experience in a young career. So he's got a couple years left in his contract. So you see what Gino does, and if they want to move to Howell, they have some flexibility there, I feel. And then you never know what happens in the draft or what comes beyond that. So, so you got a few anchors on offense, not a whole lot, because the offensive line is very unsettled. So it's really just Cross. You'd love to say Abe Lucas, but we can't say that right now because we don't know about his health. So you got Cross, you got DK, you got JSN, you got the running backs. So, got about 5 guys, I would say, that are kind of your core on offense. Then on defense, your core, they just re-signed Leonard Williams. They drafted Byron Murphy, great draft pick, should be a great player. Nwosu, great player for them. Clearly, like, they missed him hugely. Spoon is going to be like the heart of the defense, that. And I think those 4 guys probably are like the guys I would say are the anchor defensive players, and then the rest just kind of have to prove themselves in different ways, because Jones has paid a lot. He has to prove himself. All the safeties have to prove whether they should come back. Linebacker, we talked about, is way up in the air. So, I'd say there's like really 4 anchor guys on the defensive side right now that are like, will be here for like 2-3 more years for sure. And be the star defensive guys, the Pro Bowl caliber type of guys. And then, if they get better play out of some other guys, because McDonald did that with Baltimore. I mean, Jadeveon Clowney had one of his best seasons last year with McDonald. So you can see some other guys that'll just come out of nowhere and have great seasons you didn't really expect. So that'll happen too.
Yeah, okay, Chris. Yeah, you mentioned Clowney and other guys that Mike got the most out of. Were you surprised that nobody came over from that team? When Mike came over, there were so many rumblings that they were gonna make the big splash for Queen, but just aside from him, just even a couple of guys that just a lot of times will come over and didn't have. Is that a case of just Mike, saying, "Hey, I want to just kind of start fresh. There's a talent on this team, kind of gonna do it, starting over per se." Did you find that odd, or did you expect a couple of guys coming over?
I thought I didn't think Queen would come over.
Right.
I thought maybe the safety, his name's escaping me, but the free agent safety.
Geno Smith.
Yeah.
No, not Geno. Geno Stone.
Yeah.
Sorry, Geno Stone.
Geno Stone. I thought maybe Geno Stone, just because you could bring somebody in who could teach everybody from the back end up what your defense is. But I totally agree with what you said, Ryan. I think he just wanted to start fresh, and also part of it was John Schneider kind of in his ear saying, "This is what our budget is, so we're gonna. This is kind of how we're gonna approach free agency, and we're gonna pick off some of these guys that other people aren't really paying, that we know can play or we think can play. But you tell me if you think they can play before I sign them, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think he just wanted to, like, hey, I'm gonna make it my thing. I mean, if you notice, they kept a lot of their. I mean, Darrell Taylor, like we talked about, we didn't know if he would fit Mike MacDonald, but he decided to bring him back and try it. Leonard Williams was a no-brainer. He was the number 1 priority for the whole team, like everything that they did this offseason, as far as I was concerned. So it was really good that they re-signed him. So I think he's gonna. He is where it all starts. Is Leonard Williams. Like, it's all, the whole defense starts with him and then Spoon on the back end. Those 2 guys, like, they're the bookends of the entire defense, if you ask me. And then the other guys that we talked about, Nwosu in the middle and Murphy coming in, like, those guys will be huge too. But I think that was their plan, and they followed it through, and it did well. And so we'll see. So I don't think Mike's going to miss not having any Baltimore guys.
Yeah, so going back a little bit to the offense here there, Chris, the Seahawks offensive line, like we talked about how, we hope Charles Cross takes another step this year in the positive and we get our franchise left tackle out of it. Abe Lucas, from all sounds, could be back for the start of training camp or the preseason, and hopefully what Pete Carroll said was a chronic injury. It sounds like it may not be chronic, and they may have been able to fix that. And then obviously now the center position, it sounds like Olu's going to get the shot to go there, the guy that they drafted last year to take over that position. They picked up Christian Haynes in the draft, as well as another guard out of Utah in I'm going to butcher his name. I want to say it's Letua. I can't even. I'm not even going to try. But how do you see this, O-line shaking up? Lamea. Thank you. There we go. And they obviously brought in Laken Tomlinson as well. Everything I've heard out of minicamp, Tomlinson's name's come up like unprovoked from the reporters, and they brought it up and been like, hey, Mike MacDonald has, Jake Bobo's brought it up on different occasions, Tyler Lockett, like all these guys talking about the type of leader he is. He's part of this 9-man leadership group that Mike MacDonald's put in place in Seattle. So how do you see this O-line shaking out this year? And is Laken Tomlinson potentially going to be another version, maybe a better version of Mike Upati when he came into Seattle there and kind of brought some of these younger guys along at the time, outside of Dwayne Brown?
Yeah, I mean, you have to hope that he continues to be the Iron Man that he has been. Everyone keeps touting that, and I keep knocking on wood when everyone keeps saying, "Oh, he doesn't miss any games," blah blah blah. Well, he's also been around for a while, so let's just take it one game at a time, so to speak, because we know what happens with linemen in Seattle for some reason. They just never keep a unit together for an entire season. But I'm very optimistic about Cross, obviously, and Tomlinson on the left side. I think that should be pretty solid. And hopefully Lucas will be right tackle, but I'm really glad that they brought George Fant back, because that means they have some really, good depth at right tackle. So right tackle should be totally fine with Fant behind Lucas if that has to happen that way. And then it just comes down to, can Olu anchor the middle? Can he do it? And then right guard, they have all these different options, and I know they're also looking at the young guy McClendon, Curtis McClendon, who is apparently sort of in the mix. They're saying potentially. I don't know if I believe that, because they drafted Christian Haynes, pretty high there, third round to I would assume start. But hey, they'll have a good competition there with Bradford as well. So I mean, that's great. The best man will win. And you'll have a right guard who hopefully can do both pass and run blocking, because that's what you want. You don't want like these one-dimensional guys in there who just get clobbered on one side of the offensive equation. So, but to me, it just comes down to you got to have that linchpin in the middle, and they've really been weak at center, for the last 2 or 3 years. They just have not had, whether it's because of injuries at guard that have made like the center has had to kind of overcompensate to help out like young guards or the injury replacements. And they just haven't it's all about teamwork in there, especially inside, the 3 guys inside. And they just haven't been able to put together that teamwork because of all those things we just talked about. So, but I'm really optimistic the left side is going to be solid. And it really just comes down to, is Olu the center? And how does everybody come together? It's good that they have a veteran in Laken Tomlinson on the left guard. That's really good, because you want at least one of your guards to be a vet. And then on the right side, it's those 3 young guys with almost very, very little or no experience. So some young guy is going to start at right guard, and a young center too. So you're definitely going to have growing pains. Absolutely. Like nobody should expect anything other than that. It's going to happen. And then it's just going to come down to the veterans, being able to fill in there and help it out. And lock it down. So, and people are going to have to play above what we think they're going to. They're just going to have to. Otherwise, they're going to have some troubles, and that's what happened last year, where I went into last year thinking, oh my gosh, their offense is loaded, like they're ready to go, like they got a good offensive line that's going to protect, Gino, and then they'll air it out, they'll do whatever they want, and oh my gosh, they struggled so much because their offensive line, they lost both their tackles and had so many troubles, and they didn't have a good center again, so we talk about this all the time. It's like a broken record for me to always talk about the offensive line and how important I think the offensive line is. But offensive line, defensive line, and quarterback, if you have those three things, you will win pretty consistently in the NFL. And so that's to me, a huge question mark. Offensive line, what are we going to do? How's it going to go?
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And that's just going to determine how, does Gino take the next step, right? Especially that interior. I mean, we just recycle centers, especially in the last 10 seasons, right? I think it's almost a new center per season, right? So it's and then you look at the offense, right? I mean, dead last in the number of plays last season, right? And just terrible in third downs. And like you said, like I think Bryce and I were saying the same thing. You drafted JSN and you had DK and Lockett in the backs, and you were like, pick your poison. This is going to be fun. Now, obviously offensive line troubles in the interior. You could say Gino was streaky, but that line is it starts and finishes, right? So, you kind of think, what is going to be the difference this year? Like, is it just solely if this line gets right? And like you said, you got some young guys in the middle, so there'll be some growing pains. What do you see that could be a potential difference? Just, obviously Grubb's new to the NFL, but dynamic in the college game. What do you see that he could do a little differently? I mean, because there's no denying we have the weapons. I mean, we obviously have some nice pieces, but just maybe, even if the offensive line improves a little bit, I mean, just the statistics were so bad last year. I mean, number of plays was just not good. Third downs weren't good. What do you see could be the difference in his offense that could at least, if there's some trouble in that interior, he can sort of rise above that and just utilize, these weapons to at least be better?
Yeah, I think one thing we could see that wouldn't be a surprise to me is if he went 180 degrees from what he did at UW, and instead of a passing attack, they suddenly, really focused on running the ball with two good running backs and really getting some good, solid push up the middle and pulling your guys. Like, I think he's good at that. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but I think he's good at moving his linemen around and creating some misdirection blocks and things like that, some combination blocks, things that legal ones, that allow the running backs to hit those holes and to find the holes. And if you can do that, you take the pressure off the quarterback, and then you can move the ball around, and this totally speaks to everything Mike MacDonald wants to do. He wants to keep both sides of the opponent off balance. So, we talk about the defense a lot, how he wants it to be 13 guys, feel like there's 13 guys out there. He also says the same thing about the offense. He wants the offense to be so chaotic seeming that the defense has no idea what they're going to do. So I think you're going to see a lot of motion. I think you're going to see a lot of pulling type stuff. I think you see a lot of combination plays with like tight ends and the way that they use the tight ends, because that Fant is a great tight end, and I think they know that they can get more out of him than what was happening before. He's just showed like flashes of it, and he's always been reliable. You can get him the ball to him, he's going to do something. He has run after catch ability. He's a solid blocker. He's a great all around tight end. So I'm glad they re-signed him. So I think we're going to see a little bit different than what Grubb did at UW. I think that would be the factor I think that would help Ryan is get a running game going, and then you can take the pressure off the pass game, and then you can do both, and you can mix and keep everybody off balance. And I think that's what they'd like to do. I'm just guessing that that's maybe the direction they're going.
It's funny that, Chris, just looking at the Ryan Grubb offense, and everyone looks at it because of Jalen Polk and McMillan and Penix and Adunze and all that last year. But the games that they actually put up the most statistical passing stats and the best games they did have Dylan Johnson had over 100 yards rushing, the running back there. And one thing, I think people forget, especially in those two playoff or the Pac-12 championship game against Oregon, Dylan Johnson got banged up throughout that game, but he was so effective for them. And Ryan Grubb is an O-line coach at heart. That's what him and Scott Huff have together that they've built. Like, he had Eastern Michigan as one of the top rushing teams in college football at one point. He did the same thing at Fresno when he was there with the Boar. So I think definitely what you said with Charbonnet and Ken Walker, I think what we're going to see is I think the passing game is going to be very creative and very vertical down the field, get those mismatches with motion. But I don't think it's going to be Geno Smith dropping back 37, 42 times a game and launching the ball all over the field. I think Geno may throw 25 times in a game, but he's going to maybe put up 300 yards because of the explosive plays they will get out from that run game that Ryan Grubb is actually so well known for outside of what he's done the last 2 years with Kalen DeBoer at Washington. I think, Dylan Johnson was one of the best running backs in college football last year for the Huskies, and people forget about him because of all the passing numbers. But he got nicked up and couldn't play in that Michigan game. And like you said, Mike MacDonald's defense that he had constructed at Michigan tore apart the Huskies. Well, part of the problem was the Huskies couldn't run the ball for a lick in that game because Dylan Johnson wasn't healthy. They didn't have another back to go to. I think if Dylan Johnson's healthy in that game, there's a chance the Huskies and Michigan have a lot tighter of a game than what it seemed because a lot of that game got put on Penix. And I think that's what they want to avoid with Geno is, hey, last couple of years, running game's falling apart. Geno, go save us. And I think now that it's going to be, we brought in a guy, he's going to create, like you said, so many different mismatches and issues for the defense to figure out what they want to do. And he's going to gash them with the run as well as a very vertical pass game. Because listening to Jake Bobo today, he said, the one thing we can all say that's different than Shane Waldron is we are going to take chunks, not small little lateral throws. We are taking chunk shots down the field. I almost wonder, and this is just me, what Ryan Grubb does well is what Pete Carroll always said he wanted to do, run the ball and be explosive in the pass game. Ryan Grubb has literally done that at Washington, and I think that's what Seattle's offense is finally going to actually look like, and not the chaotic way Russell used to do it with scrambling around to get the chunk play. It'll be an on-time chunk play by moving everybody around.
Yeah, those are all great points. I kind of chuckled when you were talking about that, because Russ loves the deep ball. He loved it. He loved it a lot. But you're right. A lot of times it was not an on-time deep ball. It was a move it around, a playground style, as people would always say. But when it was on time, it was beautiful. It was like, hey, look at that. That's just how you draw it up. So yeah, I think the offense, maybe more than the defense, Ryan Grubb's offense and how it develops is going to be more interesting. Because I think we can all project the path of the defense under MacDonald. I think we all are very confident in what he's going to be able to do, especially with, we just talked about some of the major talent they have over there and some of the other upstarts, that we think might step up. But so on the offense, we know where the talent is and we know where the deficiency is. And the question is, can Grubb lift up the deficiency and make it less of the offensive line, less of a, because let's just get back to what we all know. We looked at this going into the offseason. We're like, everyone was saying, why is John Schneider not addressing the offensive line? Why are there no offensive linemen being signed? What's going on? We signed Nick Harris, who's just a backup guy. Then we signed Tremaine Ankrum from the Rams, just a backup guy. And then, okay, so you're relying on the draft, and then so they did get a good guy in Haynes, who, should eventually become the starter, if not right away. But center, they're totally relying on Olu, and it really comes down to he's kind of the focal point of the offense to me. Like if he doesn't get it done, then they have to put Harris in there, and Harris he's shown he's a backup for a reason. Maybe he'll have a good game and then he'll have a bad game. Then he'll have a good game and then he'll have a bad game. He'll have 3 bad games. So Olu needs to do it, or they're going to be in trouble in the middle, and they're going to have to be making up stuff to make up for that, which then limits their offense in other ways, as we all know.
So, Chris, I got one more question here for you. A little bit it's on the offense, but giving your history when you were reporting on the Seahawks, you went through that Mike Holmgren era through Matt Hasselbeck and Trent Dilfer and that whole development saga. So one thing for me, like as this offseason's kind of gone through with Geno and then the addition of Sam Howell, people have been, Geno or Howell, who do we start? Like, what was the deal? Why didn't we draft a quarterback? And so on and so forth. And the one thing I kind of came to the conclusion of from John Schneider's history in Green Bay with Ted Thompson and that whole situation is, to me, and he was even here in Seattle when I believe they had just got, or close to getting Matt Hasselbeck in that whole situation. This to me seems almost like a repeat of what Mike did with Trent Dilfer and Matt Hasselbeck. You had an established veteran in Trent Dilfer. You go and trade for this young quarterback out of Green Bay. You bring him in. He's potentially got the opportunity to start, doesn't really work out. He sits for a few years and then takes over the job. Do you see that more of what the Hal Geno situation is than more of them competing to both be number one kind of a thing? Or it's one or the other, more like they could actually extend both of these guys potentially if Geno has a good year and extend Sam and basically kind of move this down and kick that, hey, we have to draft a quarterback down the road a while?
Yeah, I would say, just to go back to the Holmgren era, the difference is they traded for Hasselbeck to be the starter. And then they brought in Dilfer as the backup. And Hasselbeck he butted heads with Mike Holmgren. He wouldn't do what Mike wanted him to do. And so that got him benched. And then Dilfer did well, but then he got hurt. So, but he was the starter. He was made the starter the second year. So Hasselbeck was going to be the backup in that second year when they were both there. And then Dilfer got hurt. He tore his Achilles against Dallas. And then Hasselbeck took over. And by the end of that season, he was lighting it up 300 yards a game. And like he was the starter for good at that point. So that's kind of how that one developed. This one I think is so very different just because you have it's similar in that Hal could be Hasselbeck. Like he could become Hasselbeck. So that's the similarity I think you're drawing right there. Is this the guy that is going to be the future guy? But they don't know that. So because they have Geno, who's currently already their starter. So that's the one difference, is they already have a starter. So the question is, how long do they have that starter before they give Howell the chance to step up and become Hasselbeck possibly? So I feel like he could. I don't think anybody could say he definitively right now, oh no, there's no way that could ever happen. I mean, look at all the experience he has. Yes, he threw a lot of interceptions, but that Washington team had all kinds of problems. We all know that. So it wasn't a good team on either side of the ball. So there's a chance. And so he could become that parallel that you're drawing between Hasselbeck and Howell could be very legit of how their careers just kind of go just like very, very similarly. But we don't know yet because we don't know what's going to happen with Geno and how this season is going to shake out and all that. We don't know all that. That's what's so fascinating about it. To me, it's just this part of the fun drama of, you got the games, but then you got the game within the game, and then you got the game outside the game. It's like 3 layers of games in the NFL that make it so fun.
It is going to be an exciting season for all those reasons. You think that's one of the reasons or strategies that they didn't look at bringing in a young guy at quarterback? Like, obviously they brought Sam in, but drafting a guy because there's, first year Mike MacDonald and just you have Geno Smith. And like you said, it's just you're almost on this year-to-year basis. And then you do have Sam in case, Geno just falls off or just not what you think, or you don't want to, extend them and give him a smaller or a shorter extension or whatnot. Do you think that played a role, being that it's Mike's first year here and just we don't need that where it's like, hey, all eyes on this, even if it's a 3rd round quarterback like a Spencer Rattler kind of guy. I know he went a little later, but he was projected. Or were they just sort of in a position where like, hey, we got the 16th pick and all this, and we're just not gonna, we don't have the draft capital, we're not gonna move up. And we're going to go after other needs.
I think that was it right there, Ryan. Because Schneider said before the draft, he's like, yeah, we've done the math on the teams that need quarterbacks and how many quarterbacks there are. And I think they knew going in, we have no shot. Quarterbacks will be drafted higher than, they should be, like they always are. And we're not going to have a shot at 16. Even if we try to move up to 10, we would be giving up a lot to gamble on a guy. Do we want to do that? or do we want to just trade a 4th round pick to, Washington for Sam Howell, the equivalent of a 4th round pick? And so I think they did all their math on that, and they decided the best math for them now was that deal that they made for Howell. And it may turn out to be that way, because that half these quarterbacks that were drafted in the 1st round are going to bust out. It always happens that way. So just by fact of history, that's what's going to happen. So these questions: which ones? Who's going into a bad situation where they're just going to flame out and become a backup or be out of the league, and who has a good enough spot or has the talent to overcome the deficiencies and will actually succeed. So that's to be determined. But I think that's they weigh all those numbers. They're like 50% fail rate. Do we really want to gamble going up there, or do we want to go for a guy? Yeah, he has some flaws. There's a reason he was drafted in the 4th round, 5th round. What was he?
5th round.
He was rated. Yeah, and he was rated a 2nd rounder. So he was drafted a lot lower than a lot of analysts thought he was going to be in that draft. So yeah.
And that's what I was going to say about Sam Howell, just to kind of close that out, is that people look at his draft year and go, "Oh, he was a 5th round pick. He doesn't have that much talent. You could see it last year in Washington. So on and so forth." I think people need to really go back and watch. I did a huge deep dive after we got Sam Howell, and Ryan can attest to it. His first 2 years in North Carolina, when he had NFL level talent around him there, he was rated as potentially in his sophomore year, if he could have came out as one of the number 1 quarterbacks off the board in the 1st round. His 3rd year, his junior year there, he lost so much talent to the draft. They reinvented the offense, and he had to become more of a runner than a passer. And people all of a sudden were like, "Oh, he can't do it. He can't throw." Look at his numbers, and he plummeted. Like you said, he was a 2nd round grade, and he plummeted all the way down to the 5th round. And then last year in Washington, you're asking essentially a rookie quarterback, because he didn't play his 1st year except for the last game of the year. You're asking him to throw 620 passes as a rookie quarterback with he didn't have a DK or that. He had Dotson and Terry McLaurin. Well, I love Scary Terry, but he's not DK or JSN or any of those type of guys. He's not screaming to have, and when you don't have another weapon around, he's going to get double teamed. It's going to be taken away. And Eric Bieniemy proved, I think, last year why he wasn't given off head coaching jobs, due to the fact that his offense doesn't work without Andy Reid there. And they completely abandoned their run game when they had Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson there, who are both capable running backs. So I think this might be that situation where Sam gets the much needed reset. And the other side of it too, like we've talked about, is Gino, and me and Ryan have, at least Chris, Gino isn't married to this new staff the way he was married to Pete Carroll and that staff. And so if Gino doesn't start fast, none of us want that. But if Gino doesn't start fast and doesn't have immediate success and struggles, I could see a situation where they throw Sam in to see what do we have in Sam Howell at some point during this year if it's not panning out the way they want it to. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think that's a potential outcome if things don't go well right off the bat.
Yep, I can see it.
Hey, Chris, last question here for you. 2024, what are your ultimate expectations for the team? I know we've been discussing the squad for the last hour here, but what are your ultimate expectations for the team? And you don't have to, because I know it's early, but if you got a sort of maybe a ballparkish win total for us, what would it be now? I mean, it could always change, leading up to camp, the season, but it's fun to do. But overall, more than anything, just your expectations.
Yeah, I think they have a fairly tough schedule. They have some good teams coming into Seattle, especially, and I kind of just see them as 9 wins again. Just like last year. Now, will that be enough to get into the playoffs? That depends on other things that happen, with other teams. So, they were close last year, and just kind of missed it in the last weekend or so. But so they can maybe get to 10 if things break their way. But I kind of right now I see them as kind of a 9-win team, kind of like last year, and just because I have confidence in Mike MacDonald to fix the defense. Question is the offense gonna struggle along like it did last year and not help out? Because we really thought that the offense was going to carry the defense for the early part of this is what I thought last season. I thought the offense would carry the defense for the early part of the season until the defense got it figured out. Well, the defense started strong, just the opposite, and then faded, and the offense just kind of struggled kind of all year. So, how's that going to shake out this year under the new staff? But right now I got them like kind of 9 wins. Just that's what I see, especially with kind of a tough schedule. Got some tough teams to play, and we don't know if they're good enough to beat those teams yet. So we'll find out a lot in August. August will tell us a bunch.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the 9-10 wins. It's interesting. Yeah, the schedule is tough, and it's interesting because I mean, like you said, like last year they won 9, and the year before they won 9, and in 1 year they make the playoffs. But it was just, you knew at a certain point it wasn't even about the win total last year. It was like, even that game at Pittsburgh, people thought, or when Pittsburgh came in our house, that was sort of the nail in the coffin for Pete and most of that staff. It was almost like, this is just not good football, and even if they would have squeaked in the playoffs, it was almost, a good thing that they probably didn't, because then it's like, okay, do we, let Pete go here, back-to-back playoff appearances after, your franchise quarterback's out the door? It would have been maybe a little harder of a decision, right? So that's where we look at it too, where it's more like, how do they really look and finish the year strong with Mike, and kind of, we look at it as just this nice building block, like you said, tryout year, building block, and then hopefully establish the offensive line a little more in 25-26. We really take off. But hey Chris, time flew here, man. We appreciate you coming on. It's always a good conversation with you. You've been on the show a few times now. We love your insight, man. We really appreciate you coming on. Before we let you go, why don't you let everyone know what you got going on, and where everyone can find all your work.
Yeah, I kind of quiet down until things start up again. But when they do, it'll be my blog will be active again once we get around camp and season and all that at CHawkTalk.com, and then that's also my Twitter handle, which we all follow each other on Twitter. So yep. It's good. It's always fun. I always kind of take the break during the summer, and from really May till camp starts, it's a recharge for everybody, and then everyone gets super excited about football again, and we're all ready to rock and roll. And then fall is always really fun, no matter what happens, So because there's always drama around football. That's what's so fun about it.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, this year especially. So. Chris, appreciate it, and we'll definitely have you back on in the future, and see how things are shaping up here.
Thanks a lot, guys. It's always great to talk the Hawks with you guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Take care,
guys. That was Chris Cluff joining us, just becoming a regular on the show. He's former Seattle Times writer, Seattle journalist, and like he said, CHawk Talk. .com is the blog, and he gets really busy with that coming up. Like everybody, man, like a slow time, a lot of people on hiatus, but kind of having Chris on again. Just the last time we had him on, man, we still had guys like Diggs and Adams on the roster, and we were figuring out what to do. And man, last time, he nailed everything, just exactly what he said basically happened, and just just a refresh. And he's got a lot of same concerns. It's like, Gino's the guy, but it's like, man, like he said, Olu is when you think about it, he's gonna really become that focal point on the success of this offense here.
No, he's kind of right. That whole interior there, that center and right guard spot. Like, I really truly think Laken Tomlinson is, minus what his PFF stuff and all that crap. I think he's going to solidify that. I think he's really going to help Charles Cross out, because Cross really hasn't had a veteran beside him at that left guard spot. Like, Damian Lewis was basically growing at the same time Charles Cross was. There was a 1-year gap between the two draft picks, essentially. But I really think that Olu in that right guard, whoever it ends up being, whether it's Bradford, whether it's Haynes, is going to go through some growing pains. But I think if Olu can lock down that center spot, and I'm not saying he needs to be a first-team All-Pro, but if he's as good as Evan Brown was last year or a bit better, that's going to be fine. And that'll get us through it, because we got to remember Aaron Donald is no longer in our division. So
Right.
he's not going to be wrecking nightmares for us twice a year. And so I think that key part will be those first couple of games for Seattle, Denver, New England, and Miami to get that group kind of settling in before we hit that gauntlet stretch of like Detroit, San Francisco, Buffalo, and all that. But no, I really think that is the vocal point. And the other thing that we did talk about was how important this run game is going to be to Seattle. As much as people are looking forward to Ryan Grubb airing it out and doing all those things that he did at UW, like I said, people forget of how successful Washington's running attack was, what him and Scott Huff built there, and how they run that ball. And one thing I think that, gets lost is this is why I don't think I truly think they went out and got Christian Haynes, is because he can move as a guard. He's not a big, huge kind of Anthony Bradford that struggles to move. Like you kind of look like Lincoln Tomlinson. Yes, he's a bit bigger, but he's a veteran, so he knows how to do certain things when it comes to moving around in that front seven area, but in that box. But I think it's going to be really interesting throughout training camp what this O-line combo starts to look like. How does it look in preseason? And what this running game really ends up looking like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talk about all the firepower and the pieces, but like you said, it's gonna come down to the run game and the O line, and like you said, it could be a 180. It totally could be a 180. But like you said, he ran the ball good there too. So it's a lot of wait and sees, but it's just a fun year leading up. It's just gonna be a fun year in general, because it's like, yes, you want this team to have success. Chris wrote, maybe 9 wins. I think, what else can you do? Like, as far as a win total, I mean, you can't sit here and throw out 12, 13, because even if you think, okay, this team might take a step from 9, there's just too many unknowns on this team right now that it would be silly to just be like, okay, yeah, we're all a little biased because we love the Seahawks, but you still got to be a realist and say, okay, you know what? Look, there's nothing wrong with 9 wins for a first year coach and a new regime. Like, 9 wins can get you in the playoffs. And when you're in the playoffs, and if you get in there and you're feeling good and hot, you can go somewhere. So let's not think that that's a bad year. But we also have to look at it like, hey, this is a building block year. I don't think we're gonna have anybody that's gonna predict double-digit wins, because there's just too many unknowns on both sides of the football. And that's not a bad thing. That's just, hey, this is what's going on at this case in point. Now, 6 weeks from now, 8 weeks from now, 10 weeks from now, some of those unknowns will be a little lesser. And you might have some answers and say, okay, this is how we're shaping up. Maybe this team we are locked and loaded, or we're not. So unknowns right now can change, and that's what's exciting about going into this year. And so win totals aside, like I said, they won 9 last year, and we were like, man, it's not a very good football team. Defensively, we were like, so it didn't matter. So that's the exciting thing. But having Chris on again, guys, go over there, follow his stuff, CHawk Talk. And then he's got a couple of books too, man, that you guys should check out too. That are really, really good reads. So, just a guy that's been in the game a long time, and so super insightful guy. It's awesome having Chris on. So, and guys, coming up, we got a couple other good episodes coming up for you. We got Dan Vians again. He's coming on the next pod, and we're continuing, like I said, we're continuing our most intriguing Seahawks, and we're gonna hit you with 4 more Hawks starting from 21 down. So you guys gonna look out for that, and that's all about hitting that notification button, man, so you don't miss any of that stuff. So we got some good stuff for you this month, and then like we said, we're gonna be a little hiatus in the beginning of July, and then fire back up just for camp. So it's gonna be exciting.
Can't wait,
man. So that's all tonight, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.